Yo, Drake, my brother, I think you're not reading the room here. You just went through one of the most horrifying rap battles of life. I do kind of look at Drake like, bad timing again.
I study
Bad timing
for a living.
Are you scared away from LA?
Wow.
Are you?
Spicy.
Are you?
Am I scared away?
No, you're not.
No.
Okay, then why didn't you do an LA tour? Why are you just in your
LA tour? Spicy.
Lawberries and gentlegrams, in today's episode of the Canadian Katy Perry acting like a fruity fairy, the belligerent bearded BBL buffoon bald with Bobbi Althoff, and I'm not talking balling out. I'm saying he was bawling, weeping, crying like the petty prom queen petition padre that he is, cackling like a Kardashian, getting gloriously in his gossip girl bag, bashing on Rick Ross, Kendrick Lamar, the entirety of hip-hop media. Marilyn Monroe was mocking and dodging Bobbi Althoff's hard-hitting questions, like if he got his abs enhanced in surgical sessions. We will break down why the gaveling Graham gave us the goofiest interview of all time, but first drop a little like and subscribe if you enjoyed the rhyme.
I study
Spicy.
for a living.
Now, Lawberries and gentlegrams, it's no wonder that Drake was so excited for Young Thug to come out of jail. He missed having his gossip queen friend right by his side.
Spicy.
Aside from Young Thug yapping about everyone in the industry, La Brianna was smoking on that gossip girl pack like a chimney. Jimmy couldn't keep quiet like a cricket, no Jiminy, so he linked Bobbi Althoff to spill the tea on his enemies.
You know what I did, man? Fuck all y'all, man. For real, man. I see y'all boys outside when I see y'all, man. For real, man. Spicy.
Now keep in mind, this is the first Drake interview we have received since the beef transpired, and it's no wonder he linked up with Bobbi Althoff to do this. She's clueless in terms of what's going on in music. She doesn't know anything. She's more concerned with asking Drake about when he thinks he's getting married, or if his abs are fake, or if he got a BBL, versus asking the hard-hitting questions. But he knew this. If you're waiting on a Drake interview with an actual journalist or someone within hip-hop, you're better off waiting for him to release the ghostwriters out of the OVO sweatshop.
I study
Ghostwriters
for a living.
The last time Drake did the traditional hip-hop media press run was way back in 2013 when he was dropping Nothing Was the Same. You know what also dropped in that same month was Kendrick's Control verse. And that was the last time we ever saw Drake sit down with someone like an Angie Martinez on a radio show where his answers couldn't be controlled and manipulated and edited to better suit his own narrative, right? And that's why he came across as super salty and sad and petty about that Kendrick verse.
Spicy.
Because they caught him off guard at the heat of the moment, asking him these questions live on air when he couldn't prepare and take the time to properly formulate a well-constructed answer that would make him look good. So his emotions just spilt out, right? We saw him crying about that verse, and that's what prompted Kendrick to get on the BET cypher and rap Nothing Was the Same since they dropped Control and tucked a sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes.
Embarrassing.
And ever since then, I want you to tell me, what interviews has Drake done? He did one with Elliot Wilson and B-Dot, which was at his house, posted on his YouTube channel, likely highly edited, likely filmed by his camera crew, high level, big budget stuff that just seemed very Hollywood, very fabricated, very politically correct. He did touch on certain things like the Pusha T beef, the Meek Mill beef, but A, he was getting softball questions, and B, you could tell he was very careful with his words, almost like the answers were thought of in advance, right? That whole thing seemed very fabricated. It was a good interview though, nonetheless. He's also done a couple sit-downs with Zane Lowe, who he actually talks crap about in this Bobbi Althoff interview. We'll touch on that shortly, but his Zane Lowe interviews were also very manufactured. They were for Apple Music. He was asking very softball questions. He also did a softball interview with DJ Semtex, which didn't even have visuals, so you couldn't see, what parts of the audio they were clipping out and editing. I say all this to say, Drake hasn't actually been challenged by a well-researched journalist live on air where he doesn't have the opportunity to, concoct the most politically correct answers. He hasn't done that since 2013, all the way back in the Controlverse days. Why? Because he stands nothing to gain.
I need the Max win.
Like, yes, he has a bunch of fans who would love if he answered the millions of unanswered questions from this beef, right? Like, what prompted all these rappers to go at you? How'd you feel about losing?
I study
Losing.
for a living.
How'd you feel about the Super Bowl? In the Hard Part 6, one bar you rapped, the guys you got your information from, they're all clowns, but the next bar you rapped, we plotted for a week and we fed you the information. So, which one is it? Why were you so confident that Family Matters was the red button? Where's the proof on any of the allegations you made there? What do you ultimately want to gain out of this lawsuit? But ultimately, no matter how bad we want answers for all these questions, what does Drake have to gain by giving them to us, right? The people who already formed their opinions of him, whether it's love and hate, are not going to change their minds by him answering these questions or kind of filling in the gaps on what we've been confused about for the last year and a half, right? Like, him explaining why he did Wagwan Delilah is not going to make anyone else think he's less of a clown for making a song like that.
I'm gonna see y'all, but I see y'all, man, for real. You know, I got hope. For real, real talk.
I don't know if you should have done all that.
And then, as far as Kendrick Lamar, right, everyone's saying, oh, like, the world only expects Drake to sit down with a hip-hop journalist. What about Kendrick Lamar? He hasn't done an interview. Well, you obviously haven't been doing your research because he did an interview with 2 hip-hop journalists, Nadeska and Ebro, and he's not the one filing the lawsuit, throwing temper tantrums on Instagram every day.
I study
Throwing temper tantrums
for a living.
calling Steve Lacey his fragile op, talking about red buttons right before he loses a rap battle, right? There's not that many questions that Kendrick Lamar has left unanswered. He did 2 interviews since the beef ended. One where he explains what he means by not like us, and then in the Nadeska and Ebro interview, he spoke about his intention behind the beef and behind GNX, and why there was such a sharp contrast in his energy within 2024 versus his energy on Mr. Morale in 2022.
I love when artists grit their teeth.
You created this massive cultural award-winning anthem out of a battle rap song.
My intent from day one was to always keep the nature of it as a sport. I think a lot of people was putting rap to the back and you didn't see that grit, you didn't see that bite anymore.
We kind of understand where Kendrick is at and why he did the things he did already and what this beef meant to him, right? I'd still love to see Kendrick Lamar sit down with a hip-hop journalist, and I'm sure he will do that before Drake does. But even if he doesn't, he's not the one leaving the trail of baggage and unanswered questions behind. That's why people are expecting Drake to talk about this crap, right? He did so after the Pusha T beef. Again, another highly manufactured, controlled interview with LeBron James on his show The Shop.
I study rap battles for a living.
But I'm telling you guys, he's not going anywhere where he can't control the narrative of the interview. He stands nothing to gain and everything to lose, because if he's live on air, he has the opportunity to fumble and say some really stupid stuff, versus if he's sitting down with someone who he knows are going to throw him softball questions or edit out anything that doesn't make him look good, then at the very least he'll know that the interview did something positive for his brand. Plus, I mean, we saw him link up with Adin Ross for a couple live streams, XQC and now Bobbi Althoff. All of these people have very diverse audiences, right? And mainly younger audiences. He knows sitting down with a Joe Budden and Elliott Wilson, Akademiks, Rory and Mal, whoever, that's going to appease his hip-hop fans, maybe, but he's already lost so many of them, or they view him as a clown because of that lawsuit. He stands nothing to gain by trying to answer questions about the loss that he took. By linking up instead with Bobbi Althoff and Adin Ross, he's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. One, he's able to still kind of show that he's outside, he's showing off his personality, he's still, in the topic of conversation, but doing it strategically to avoid any hard-hitting questions because they're not going to ask him stuff like that.
People think you got a procedure done.
Really?
Yeah, an ab one.
And then number 2, unlike, the Elliott Wilsons and the Akademiks who have an audience that Drake has already captured, with Adin Ross and Bobbi Althoff, these are new audiences where if he appears on their platform, he can suck up some of their fan base, right? The same way where he used to collaborate with Future all the time because that gave him an in into the trap music scene and their fan base. And he touches on that in this interview too, how people kind of view him as a culture vulture for that. The whole Not Like Us third verse where Kendrick is saying that he ran to Atlanta and colonized their sound. So let's jump into this goofy interview. But first, Lobbies and Gentlegrams, unlike Drake, a bunch of you guys have been telling me you've been Anita Max winning some free cash from playing mobile games. So I want to put all you guys on to something that almost seems too good to be true, all right? Let me give you a little glimpse into my life. When I'm not making this content for you guys, I have a disgusting addiction to my phone. My daily screen time is higher than Drake on that album cover, higher than Snoop off the edibles. So if you guys suffer that same addiction as me, I want to put you onto something that's going to change your life. FreeCash.com is a program that partners with mobile games that are looking for more users to play their games, and they will literally pay you to play their games for free. All you got to do is sign up using the QR code you see on the screen or using the link in the description of this video. You make an account super easy. Literally, all you got to do is put in your email, create a password, verify your email, and then you're good to go. And they got a bunch of games. My favorite is the Monopoly Go because we're always on the go trying to make some money. Once you make an account, you just click the game you want to play, follow the directions that they give you. The directions are super easy. Usually you just got to download the game and start playing. So it's about time you put that phone addiction to good use. Again, use the QR code you see on the screen or the link in my description. Create an account and you could start making more than $150 just to play a game on your phone. Now, I'm also seeing a lot of people saying on Twitter, follow me on there, by the way, Rapaholics, the same way you spell it over here, or the name on the page is hiphophistory_. They're saying on Twitter that this new Drake song that's about to drop, he announced that it's coming out tomorrow night, Iceman Episode 3. Apparently, it's supposed to be a bomb, the big red button that Drake has been teasing now for what, 2 years?
Spicy.
In the midst of this lawsuit that he's filed, apparently he's coming out with the red button. Does this mean that game 2 is going to be on? Does this mean like we're going to see a rejuvenation of this Kendrick battle? To me, it's just like Drake has been trying to paint himself as like the villain of hip hop really since like 2018 after the whole XXX thing. I'm not saying that he did anything there, but just the weird bars he had, you know, the whole back and forth with Pusha T and Kanye West. He had a whole song called Red Button saying that if he pushed that red button, everything would be detonated. And then after this whole beef, you know, he's talking about being a war general and shooting videos where there's a bunch of firearms aimed at him, right?
You know what I did, man? Well, y'all, man, for real, man. I see y'all boys outside when I see y'all, man, for real, man.
And now apparently the song that's coming out tomorrow on Iceman Episode 3 is going to be called Who Was It? And they're saying it's going to shake up the industry. Who Was It, if you guys didn't know, was part of a bar that he rapped on the Hard Part 6 when he said, you mentioned an A minor, but people got to be sharp and tell the fans who was it. This is also, I think, the first Iceman episode that he's announced like days before the actual drop. So maybe he's been calculating this a little more carefully than the song with Central C, for example, the last song we got from him, because if that was his attempt at a comeback hit, it's going to be a rough climb back up to the top. I'm sure all you guys would love to see this beef reignited, but I'm really not sure what Drake can reveal at this point that will get Kendrick to respond. Or better yet, what can he reveal that will make him win this battle or the war or game 2, whatever you want to call it, a year and a half after the actual battle commenced, especially when you have a lawsuit underway because you lost the rap battle so bad.
I study rap battles for a living.
But hey, I mean, he is suing the industry, right? He's suing UMG, not Kendrick. He's making it seem like at this point it's bigger than Kendrick, the beef, and not like us. It's the whole industry purposely trying to attack him, lower his brand value because he's been too powerful, right? And he's been talking since last year, since like August of last year, saying that we will win game 2. And that's a fitting thing to say because the biggest hits Drake has had since the beef have failed to hit number 1 on the charts. Nokia and What Did I Miss? They both hit number 2. Meanwhile, Kendrick has had 4 number 1 hits in the last year and a half. So I think if Drake is smart, he's not taking this and directing it at Kendrick, right? This Iceman crap, this is going to be about the bots, the fake streams, the industry going against him, some sort of information related to that. But at the same time, it'd be kind of hard to, you know, start attacking the industry in your music when you're facing a lawsuit against them, right? So if this new Iceman episodes has something that's going to shake up the game and expose the industry, wouldn't you put that in your lawsuit first? You have to think about it logically, right? Drake filed this lawsuit, and in the lawsuit is every piece of evidence that Drake's team has currently to try and show the judge that there was a calculated attack by the industry to try and tear him down. And they used Not Like Us as the ammo for that, right? And then they went into the discovery phase of the lawsuit, which is basically where Drake's lawyers can request a bunch of documents from UMG to try and help them build their case and get more proof. So they asked for Kendrick's contracts, any information UMG has related to allegations of Kendrick abusing people or Dave Free being the father of Kendrick's kid, because obviously that would prove that, you know, the information in Drake's Family Matters was not defamation because it was real information if he could really get that from UMG. All of this stuff, it's stuff he's asking for within the lawsuit. It's not actual proof that he has. So if he's really holding on to some red button that's going to expose how the industry went against him, he wouldn't be dropping it first in a record. He would be putting it in his lawsuit, bringing that to the judge to say, hey, look, here's clear evidence that they manipulated the charts, the fake streams, whatever. Let's move this case forward because this is the most proof that I have. Right now, he hasn't been showing the judge any proof of manipulation that UMG did. And at the same time, the judge granted him access to dig through UMG's files, but they have to be concealed. They have to be kept within the court. Some of them, like Kendrick's contracts, Drake doesn't even have permission to review. It's only his lawyer that can look at them. So again, if this information that we get in this Red Button Iceman episode 3 is going to prove to the world that UMG or the industry really tried to take down Drake, it would have to have been mentioned already in this lawsuit before Drake can just go and bring it to the public. At least that's what I think. I could be wrong. We'll be waiting, and we'll be breaking it down. But in the meantime, let's break down this goofy interview with Bobbi Althoff. So it kicks off with Drake telling Bobbi that this is the nicest thing a guy has ever done for her.
Welcome to the nicest thing that any guy's ever done for you.
And I mean, the accent Drake is using throughout this interview, it's just absolutely hilarious, right? Drake has like 6 accents that he can switch on and off. In this interview, you get the white girl. You also get the Will Ferrell accent. That's what I call it. Like that comedic kind of animated, goofy accent. That's my favorite because that's who Drake really is at heart, right? An actor. You also got the Toronto accent, like, yo, wagwan, Roddy. I'm really about to press the red button on your Gerberts, fam. He has the Jamaican accent, the London accent. Sometimes he's rapping or singing or even just talking like a Young Thug or a Future. I'm probably forgetting some, but in this interview, we got the white girl accent. It's only fitting because he's with Bobbi Althoff for his slumber party, right?
Welcome to a much more refined, poised, and pleasant.
Pleasant.
Welcome to a much more scenic and sexy.
No, try it again.
Welcome everybody to the Rapaholic Show, where we will be clowning on BBL buffoonery, belligerent, Bobbi Althoff bestie, La Brianna. Alright, enough with the slumber party accent. So here's where it gets ridiculous, right? Drake is addressing the criticism he had for the first time that he linked up with Bobbi Althoff, because if you guys didn't know, this is their second interview podcast, whatever you want to call it, together. Drake is really responsible for kicking off this young woman's career, and they explain in the episode how the first one that they did, it was actually Bobbi Althoff's daughter's first birthday, the night that she flew out to go interview Drake. So she missed that massive milestone to be in a bed with Drake, yapping to him on a podcast, right? Obviously, I'm sure her husband did not like that. And she said that after that, it became like the darkest moment of her life. And she kind of blamed Drake for it. She ended up divorcing her husband after that. But Drake kind of makes it all about himself. And he's like, yeah, people didn't really like the interview. Not because of the backlash you got, for missing your daughter's birthday. But no, more about me. They didn't like how I wasn't sitting down with a traditional hip hop journalist. Instead, I was sitting down with this random white girl talking about painting my nails and sculpting my abs. So he trashes traditional journalism here by basically saying the real journalists were mad that I haven't given them an interview, and instead I went and sat down with you. You have no real credentials. You don't know anything about music. You don't really have the entitlement to get an interview like this, especially when I don't do them often. And these, well-researched, well-established individuals who study journalism for a living, like you studied rap battles for a living.
I study rap battles for a living.
They don't get crap. They don't get zilch from Drizziana. And this just goes into the broader scheme of Drake really trying to, paint himself against American hip-hop media specifically. We saw him attacking Rob Markman recently. He was beefing Elliott Wilson, Joe Budden, anyone who criticizes him, really. The only people who he, still kind of cosigns are the people who glaze him to endless degrees. Akademiks, Maul, Adin Ross. It shows a control thing, right? Like, even him saying, this interview, Bobbi, is the nicest thing a guy has done for you. It shows, Drake understands his power, but he also leverages it in a way where he's getting something off of you, he's sucking off your fan base, but you're also absolutely glazing him. He's controlling the entire narrative, and he's using this for his own personal gain.
Me essentially just recognizing somebody that I never met in my life that I thought was really interesting and I wanted to have an interesting conversation with. It pissed off so many all these losers, these story journalists and this guy and that guy who feels so entitled to this interview about, and Drake never does anything for this type of media, and it just made people so angry.
And Lobry claims that it's because that first time he sat down with Bobbi Althoff that rappers are now more comfortable sitting down with streamers. First of all, this is incredibly wrong for so many different reasons. Number one, Bobbi Althoff isn't a streamer, right? Second of all, the streamers he mentions, like Nicki Minaj going to Kai Cenat or people going to Playboi Max, Kai Cenat and Playboi Max, they do way different things than Bobbi Althoff, and they actually have talent, right? Kai Cenat's talent is literally creating an entire world, an entire entertainment TV show out of his streams. So you're seeing Chris Brown do dancing challenges with him. He just did something with Kim Kardashian. I didn't watch it, but he brings these guests on and there's an elevated content experience there, right? He did like a slumber party with Kevin Hart and Drewski, which was pretty funny. He did a slumber party with Offset, I think. It's kind of weird that Drake wants to take credit for all the slumber parties happening within hip-hop, but Kai Cenat does something way different than Bobbi Althoff, and rappers were visiting his stream long before Drake visited Bobbi Althoff, right? I remember watching Tory Lanez freestyle on Adin Ross's stream, or there was the whole thing where Playboi Carti was paid $2 million by Adin Ross to show up on his stream for like 2 minutes, not say a word, and then leave. Or the time 21 Savage scammed Adin Ross. I don't know. To me, that's like Drake saying, oh, I collaborated with Future, so that opened up the doors for all Canadian artists to now collaborate with Atlanta trap artists, right? Like, one doesn't have really much to do with the other. They very indirectly correlate.
It changed a lot of things like on TikTok. It changed a lot of things like in the streaming world. Like it made people more comfortable to go sit down with somebody that they've never sat down with before, you know, like not to take like overly take credit, but when I do see like somebody, you know, who keeps to themselves, like a Nicki Minaj, like go to like Kai Cenat's house, or like I see, you know, these musicians go to like a guy like Playboi Max's studio and start making songs with him. Like I feel like we did usher in the idea.
And he references the whole Nicki Minaj Kai Cenat thing. That's kind of funny because that directly ties back to Elliott Wilson, who had called out Nicki Minaj for doing her album rollout with a Kai Cenat, or I think his name is Funny Marco, and not sitting down with, you know, someone like himself, right? And then he also criticized Drake for doing the same with Bobbi Althoff. And Drake is basically saying like these old media journalists, they're just mad that they're not getting the interview and that we're going to different types of platforms at this time. And I understand where he's coming from 100% because, again, what the hell does he stand to gain by going to sit down with Elliott Wilson? And that's not to disrespect Elliott. I think Elliott is a much more respectable, you know, content creator, journalist, whatever you'd want to call him. And at the same time, he would ask much more captivating questions to Drake. But I'm saying Drake stands nothing to gain by answering those hard-hitting questions. And Drake emphasizes that here, saying like, you know, the days of going to sit down with Zane Lowe where he asks you a bunch of questions about your album, that's over. Now, the new era is sitting down with Bobbi Althoff, having a slumber party and talking about doing your nails and getting manicures and, you know, BBLs and abs. That's the new age of journalism.
Like, you can be from two completely different walks of life. Celebrities, the goal is not to be like some unattainable head for your whole life, you know, and only to like sit with Zane Lowe while he like asks you like the most like curated and formal questions. No disrespect to him, you know, like yeah. It's just like I think we did something that was special.
Then Drake goes in and talks about culture vulturism, if that's a word. It's funny because keep in mind this whole time, it's not Bobbi Althoff asking him like, what do you say to people calling you a culture vulture? Or what do you think of traditional hip hop media, etc.? Like, she's not asking these questions. It's Drake who like wants to talk about it, but in such a controlled way where no one could challenge him. And who better than, you know, this young woman who has no idea what's going on within the music industry, let alone music in general, right? Like, she's not going to clap back and be like, yeah, well, you know, Drake, they say you're a culture vulture because of XYZ. But we're going to do that. So if La Brianna ever wants to come on here and have me challenge him, it won't be no sassy slumber party like it was with Bobbi Althoff.
You're a culture vulture, or like people will describe the collaborative efforts that I've put forth and the artists that I've picked up and lifted up or shine a light on as me taking. They'll put a negative spin on it and try and tell me, you know, that it's a self-serving thing or whatever. And I think I get really sensitive about that.
So he's bringing this up because he was in the grand context explaining how, you know, Bobbi Althoff was kind of mad at him after doing their interview, even though he made the interview as big as it was and he basically made her career. It kind of ruined her marriage in the process, right? And so she had some animosity towards him. And Drake was here saying like, I'm tired of people, you know, trying to say that me doing them a favor is me just using them or doing it for some sort of self-serving purpose, right? So I just kind of brushed you off after you know, blame me for your whole marriage falling apart or whatever she blamed him for. And he relates that to how people have, you know, taken his kindness for evilness, if that makes sense. Like all the records that he's done for the Futures and Migos and Makonnen and Fetty Wap and whoever, these young artists who he gives features to, a lot of people say, you know, Drake is really doing that not to move the culture, but to move himself into that culture. Hence the whole third verse on Not Like Us, right? You called Future when you didn't see the club. Lil Baby helped you get your lingo up. You're not a colleague, you're a colonizer, right? Kendrick comparing Drake using these Atlanta artists for collaborations similar to how white slave owners use black people to build infrastructure in Atlanta during the slave trade. And I see both sides, right? Like obviously Drake doing features for a Block Boy JB, for Amigos, for a Future. that does help out their career, but you cannot deny that this is most definitely a mutually beneficial thing. Look at Blockboy JB, for example, right? Drake hopped on that one song with him. That was by far, not even, forget his biggest song. That was his only big song, right? Similar to how he hopped on that Bobbi Althoff interview. That was the only real impactful interview she had. It's not Drake's fault that Blockboy JB couldn't get a hit on his own after collaborating with him. But if you look strategically, that was on a Take Keith beat. I believe both Blockboy JB and Take Keith are from Memphis. Drake, right after doing that song with Blockboy, was now opening up the door to be able to do tons of massive records with Take Keith, that Memphis producer, and encapsulate that Memphis sound into his music. You saw it on Sicko Mode. You saw it on Non-Stop. I'm sure they have a bunch of other songs together. I'm forgetting them. But my point is, it was only after collaborating with Blockboy that he was able to incorporate that sound into his future music. And as a result, yeah, like Blockboy JB gets this huge look, but it kind of overshadows everything, right? Because Drake is at the forefront of that song. Drake makes the song. Everyone's only paying attention to the fact that this is a Drake track. So as a result, you're kind of now living in the shadow of this huge moment. When you're a small artist coming up, that could be a hard thing to work yourself out of. And we saw that with Blockboy's career. It was hard for him to level up beyond just being a guy with a Drake feature, right? And the same destiny could have happened for someone like the Migos. Drake hopped on Versace early on in their career. They still had a solid buzz within Atlanta, and they were kind of gaining some exposure outside of Atlanta. But if we're talking the real global scale that the Migos ended up reaching, that really only kicked off with Versace after Drake hopped on the remix. I remember this vividly because, you know, I was a white Canadian who was probably about 16 years old when that song released, right? So imagine the setting I'm in at the time. A bunch of 16-year-old white Canadians, most of them only found out who the Migos were from that Drake verse. And it took them a long time to actually not necessarily rebuild their buzz, but attain a moment as big as Versace. It took them about 3 years to get a hit as big as that after that song came out. And throughout that time, when they were kind of struggling, selling, you know, very few copies of their albums, putting out mixtape after mixtape, really grinding passionately no matter what to make it in the game, you didn't see Drake next to them. The only time you ended up seeing Drake reconnect with the Migos was about 5 years later on the song Walk It Like I Talk It, when the Migos were already out of this world, massive. And it then again benefited Drake to go and link up with them. Same thing with like a McConan versus a Future, right? We saw Drake link up with McConan one time, but after that, the hits kind of dried up and Drake kind of lingered off. Meanwhile, with Future, he kept putting out hit after hit. So it made sense for Drake to go link up and do a mixtape with him, all produced by Metro Boomin and Southside, because now he can use that production on his future music. No pun intended. He can use that lingo in his music later on. He can adopt that sound that he got from Future into his music because his audience is now used to him doing those collaborations, and he's now exposed himself to Future's audience. That's why it almost seems capitalistic, right? Because you're linking up with these guys, and yes, you're giving them a big look, but they're also giving you the cosign to adopt their style, their sound, their lingo. If they stay hot, from a capitalist perspective, you continue working with them because that's good for business. But if they kind of fall off or they can't produce as big of a moment as the one that you gave them by giving them a feature, then Drake kind of just brushes them off and forgets about them, right? You'll see it now with Young Thug and Lil Baby. Like, they're going through their fair share of like a challenging point in their career where it's harder for them to kind of find a hit. Let's see, Drake has been a very frequent collaborator of them in the past. Let's see if that continues when they're no longer as hot, right? That's why this can most definitely be perceived as a culture vulture type of maneuver. A culture vulture is defined by Oxford Languages as a person who is very interested in the arts, especially to an obsessive degree. We saw Drake have that obsessive behavior with tons of Atlanta trap artists, right? 21 Savage, Future, he's doing collab tapes with them. Tons of features with Lil Baby, Young Thug, basically anything that's hot, Drake wants to attach his name to, or if he finds an up-and-coming artist who hasn't necessarily propelled themselves to superstardom yet, but Drake likes the sound, the art that they're conveying, he does what he can to jump on their song. And yes, it helps them out, but it's also a two-way street because now you can adopt their culture into your sound. And if they end up falling off after that feature, you're usually nowhere to be found, which is why it kind of looks a little bit of a way. That's why they'll say Post Malone is a culture vulture as well, right? Because he has a very inconsistent stance within hip-hop. His breakout single was a hip-hop single. He had the braids. He was talking or rapping like he's Future. But then 3 albums later, he's saying hip-hop isn't the music that moves him, and he's doing country music and wearing cowboy hats and dressing like he's, you know, from Tennessee. You indulge yourself in a culture, in an art form, to the point where it seems obsessive, but then you leave it, you fade fade in and out of it at your own benefit. But Bobby's not going to explain this to Drake. Bobby's not going to give Drake the definition of a culture vulture. That's why we need rapaholics out here. Yeah, Bobby won't challenge the culture vulture accusations, but she will challenge Drake on what his type of woman is, which is apparently a goth baddie.
Like a goth baddie with like just...
Big boobs?
Yes.
You want a goth baddie with big boobs. That's what your type is?
Yeah, also funny.
A funny goth baddie with big boobs.
Yes.
Bobby also didn't understand when Drake dropped, in my opinion, his best diss at Rick Ross since their entire beef started.
I've never seen someone ice rosé, but...
You never seen someone ice rosé?
Mm-hmm.
Well, talk to every jeweler in Miami that has fake diamonds.
Really, they do that?
Nobody got that joke.
Because if you guys didn't know, Rick Ross's nickname is Rosé, and she's saying here ice rosé, like as in the jewelers who ice rosé give him fake diamonds. Their whole back and forth was kind of weird. Like Rick Ross was just telling him he's BBL Drizzy and he has fake abs, and Drake was telling him that he has, you know, a house that's really far away and a plane that's not as expensive as Drake's plane. And speaking of all the BBL accusations that Rick Ross had made, obviously, we know that was in reference to the fact that Drake had ab surgery, right? I haven't talked about that on the channel. I don't really care about that, the fake daughter. I'd rather keep it kind of on music-related things. BBLs don't really intrigue me unless they're on a woman. But again, another example of Bobby being clueless, because the rumor was that Drake got ab surgery. That's why they called him BBL Drizzy, and then Metro made a whole song called BBL Drizzy, right? But Bobby is confusing that, the ab rumors, with the fact that Drake really had a BBL. Obviously, Drake didn't get his butt enhanced.
People think you got a procedure done.
Really?
Yeah, an ab one.
Really?
Did you do that?
No. People do it all the time?
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
But you've never done that?
No.
Okay.
People also say that I got a BBL, right? They call me BBL Drizzy, so...
Oh, that's true. Did you?
I don't know if my like wagon looked crazy when I walked in here, but...
And while Drake doesn't admit that he had ab surgery, he does admit that he edited his picture like Kim Kardashian does to enhance it and make it look better, right? And that's why his abs looked all effed up. That's his excuse for that.
I think it was just like I came from the gym. I was sweaty in that pic. Maybe I like went on Facetune and like put like details up, you know, and you can like make it.
Don't even admit to that much. Then
sorry,
you
just being
Facetuned
honest.
it.
Yeah, I was like maybe I like heightened the like saturation or something on it.
Okay.
She asked me to see my abs, and I showed them to her.
And Drake ends the interview off trying to kiss Bobby.
How are we gonna end it?
Well, whatever we do is going to set the precedent for every interview after. So just what are you thinking? That's not what I want to happen every single interview. Can you imagine?
And of course, it wouldn't be a La Brianna interview without the white girl accent, then the Will Ferrell accent, and then of course the Toronto six-man Phony Montana mob boss accent coming out at the end, threatening all his fragile ops.
You know what I did, man? Fuck all y'all, man. For real, man. I see y'all boys outside when I see y'all, man. For real, man. On some real shit outside, some body shit, man. I'm gonna see y'all, but when I see y'all, man, for real, you know, I got hope, body, man. For real, real talk.
I don't know if you should have done all that.
Yeah.
I'm taking this.
And then this one's funny. They're talking about Bobby Althoff's friends listening to Drake's music, and he alludes to the fact that since they're from LA, they probably haven't been bumping it too much recently.
Maybe not though. Your friends are from LA. They've probably been off it for the last little bit, to be honest.
Maybe for no reason in particular, you know.
You're from LA, right? Like born and raised?
What are you getting at?
No, I was just asking. I was asking in the area. Okay. Nobody wants to claim it now, though.
I'm sure she still listened to you, but I'm not like...
Nobody wants to bang it around the gang in the area.
Claim what?
No, nothing.
Okay. What are you trying to say?
No, it's all good.
Did anything...
I know where I'm from. From that 6.
So it's all these little allusions to the beef, right? Like how, oh, you're not going to bump my music if you're from LA. Icing rosé, whatever. But Bobby is so clueless to this stuff. Like she can't even elaborate on this or get an interesting conversation out of it because she doesn't actually know what the hell happened throughout the beef or why people from LA wouldn't be able to listen to Drake's music. Well, I take that back because she did ask if Drake is scared to come back to LA. And I think this is a question we've all been asking, right? Because we know Kendrick went to Toronto 2 nights in a row, did Not Like Us in front of like 85,000 people, right? Went to Drake's hometown even though Drake's goon top 5 was hunting after him. The little meat muncher minion, he couldn't find Kendrick Lamar in Toronto. But Drake says he has no problem. He's going to come back to LA. And he only didn't go back to LA because when Kendrick initially dissed him, he was actually on tour during that time in North America. So now he's got to tour Europe. He's got to tour overseas. That's the only reason why he hasn't come back to America. And it's crazy because like he's barely addressing the beef here, but this is like the biggest like actual reference to the beef that he's made since it happened.
I'm gonna come back to LA.
Are you scared away from LA?
Wow.
Are you?
Spicy.
Are you?
Am I scared away?
No, you're not.
No.
Okay, then why didn't you do an LA tour? Why are you just in Europe?
LA tour?
In America tour, yes, just a tour of every city in LA.
I did. When all that happened, I just finished an American tour, and so I got to do another one. You know, they don't happen like every
month. You go on a new one,
right? So I'll be back.
You will.
Yeah.
And it's funny because for the most part of this interview, she's just sitting there like so clueless. And he's like trying to kind of elaborate on what's been going on, right? So he goes into detail on how he thinks like the media kind of bands together. And before he drops a project, they'll already have their opinions concocted. So they know if they're going to hate on him. They know if they're going to crap on the project because it kind of makes it look good if they can control the narrative of what, you know, the people think of the artist or of the music. But this is such a cop-out because it's like, we've heard you drop 15 projects over the last 15 years, right? The good ones people say are good. The bad ones, people are going to acknowledge if they're bad. And it's on you as an artist to try and get better and take that criticism as real advice to try to improve your craft.
When I'm dropping an album, they have phone calls, media phone calls, deciding what stance so-and-so is going to take within the first hour or within the first 3 hours or within the first 12 hours so that this person doesn't overlap with person. Well, I'm going to say that I hate the album. I don't know what it's going to bring yet, but I'm going to take this stance
And he goes a little deeper on it, emphasizing that, you know, there's crazy stuff going on in the industry. You don't know what these people will do nowadays. And this is obviously in reference to the fact that he thinks there was a grand conspiracy to bot Not Like Us like crazy and use all this payola to make it this massive song to go against him. And it was all fabricated, essentially. It wasn't real authentic love for the song. That's why he's suing UMG over it, because this was all some grand conspiracy to take him down. It couldn't have just been that he lost a rap battle over a song that was better than anything he put out.
The top conspiracy for why it got removed from YouTube is that you played Tyga's song and then they removed it.
We don't know, right? We don't know. With the shit that these guys have going on right now?
Who?
Fuck
What
yeah,
guys?
I don't know. They're doing this to this song. They're doing that to that song. They're taking songs. They're doing I don't know.
I don't know anything about
any names. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Fucking, there's a lot going on in the music industry. God only knows. Tyga might have pulled that plug. You know what I mean?
And so as you could see, it's been a long history, a long year and a half of a whole lot of sneak dissing, a whole lot of dodging the real issues at hand, a whole lot of lawsuits, a whole lot of slumber parties, a whole lot of controlled narratives, a whole lot of complaining, but not enough good music. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.